Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Welcome back, everybody, to the Near Memo, where David, Mike, and I talk about the week's events in search, social, commerce with a local lens. And we're excited to be talking to you today ahead of our Memorial Day weekend. We don't know when you'll be listening to this, but if you're listening to it ahead of or during the weekend, have a great weekend. And oh well, if you're not. Anyway, as always, a lot of news and a bit of a mishmash this week. We're going to start with Mike, who's going to talk about Walmart's drone delivery program, which they announced would be rolling out to 4 million homes in 6 states this week.
Right. So I just thought it was interesting because this week also Gorilla, which is Europe's leading grocery delivery service, announced laying off half their staff and putting half their markets on the block. Uber Eats over the past 3-4 weeks has talked about efficiencies to achieve better unit economics when they scale. It's like, hello, they've only been at this for a few years. When are they going to scale?
13 years, I think, 13. Something like that.
So it's just fascinating to me that the model and Instacart having problems, the model of charging businesses so much for this service seems to be failing all around us, not scaling. Meanwhile, Walmart is moving full speed ahead. 6 states, they're doing drone delivery in Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Texas, Utah, and Virginia. Packages up to 10 pounds, packaged in the local store, and then drone operated by this company called Drone Up, who remotely controls it, brings it to your house, drops it on a cable. I don't know if you have to take it off or it just gets delivered. I have no idea. And they noted that one of the top delivery items was hamburger helper. Now,
strangely, at least it's not tuna helper.
Cheaper to deliver that than actual hamburger. So
yes.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's food is not part of this, right, Mike? There's no food involved.
100,000 items. They said up to 10 pounds.
But perishable food is not part of it.
Right. I don't think perishable food is part of it. But I just thought it was interesting that Walmart is moving ahead. It seems full pace with drones while these other guys are failing. 2, Amazon their drone program seems to be sort of caught in limbo. And it's also interesting to me that Walmart is uniquely able to leverage their local store presence, which is close to 90% of Americans, for this type of activity. And it seems like they've developed a way to do it that's cost effective and sustainable. The whole story just is interesting to me.
Well, you couldn't do this from. I think the local store part is really critical because you couldn't fulfill this through warehouses. You couldn't do it from warehouses. You have to be in close enough proximity to the ultimate destination to make this work. And that network of stores is the enabler here.
And it's also interesting to me that Walmart's at the leading edge of this and rolling it out seems to be fairly quickly.
Another thing
interesting. Interesting. I mean, we don't typically think of rural and local as being, sort of the tip of the iceberg. And in this case, it actually only makes sense in rural markets or suburban markets, because if you try to deliver to a high rise, how do you get the item to the 5th floor of a condo building? So it's just an interesting sort of maybe somewhat counterintuitive sort of innovation. And we just don't see startups choosing a rural market or a series of rural markets for their initial stab at a product. So
I think that's a really interesting point and totally true. I mean, this in many ways flips sort of all kinds of things on its head. I mean, interesting about the condition of these delivery businesses now. I mean, just a year ago, the market was completely bullish on delivery. Everything was going to be delivered, and this comes out of the 2020 e-commerce boom. People are going to not go into stores as much, and everything will be ordered online. And what we've seen over the last several months is e-commerce is flat, store foot traffic is up, store sales are up, and so there's a kind of rebalancing. That's not to say that people aren't doing delivery, but it's much less frequent than it was, and the volumes are going down, and the model is just really kind of too expensive, I think, for everybody. The human delivery model is too expensive in most cases, not all, perhaps.
Wages and fuel costs right now, I mean, putting so much pressure on everybody. So
right, that's an important point, because I mean, I think Uber drivers in particular, Uber and Lyft drivers, are really chafing under the cost of fuel, and they're not making a living wage, if they ever were, especially now.
So in a related story I read last week, that Amazon was partnering with large retailers to hold inventory for Amazon that would be delivered same day by their flex drivers. So again, it's a model that pushes out to local retail, although in this case, third-party retail, to warehouse the items, and uses Amazon's ruthlessly efficient flex delivery system to work. One could envision Walmart leasing out space as well and delivering items by drone from a Walmart store, right? So it's interesting that the whole quick delivery is going this way. And I think it has to, in some ways. It has to be fully automated or nearly fully automated and very cheap. And I don't see how Uber can do it.
Well, perhaps they cannot over the long term.
Well, Mike, we don't want you droning on any longer. I think it's time to shift to Greg. I had to get that in. That was too good.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So guess, Mike.
Do I at least get credit for the joke?
Yes, Mike. That was Mike's joke.
Of course you do. That was a green room joke that I was not going to let stay on the cutting room floor.
Powered by Mike Blumenthal. Jokes powered by Mike Blumenthal. So,
thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.